Welcome to High Impact Growth, a podcast from Dimagi about the role of technology in creating a world where everyone has access to the services they need to thrive. I'm Amie Vaccaro, Senior Director of Marketing at Dimagi and your co-host. Today, we have the first in a really special mini-series of episodes about company culture. Dimagi has just completed a process of articulating our company values, which are intended to define how we get great work done together. We've talked a lot on this podcast about what we're up to, profiling our 5-year strategies and milestone moments in Dimagi's history. But we want to be as proud of how we get our work done as we are of what we actually do. And as we grow, we need to be clear about that how. Often expectations can be unspoken, so we're hopeful that this articulation helps attract the right people to Dimagi, helps motivate and retain our team, helps our team understand how to be successful at Dimagi, and helps us articulate our ways of working, both internally and externally. Rolling out these values is the first step in a long-term investment in company culture at Dimagi, and one I'm really passionate about. In the spirit of learning and sharing, we're sharing our journey with you. So Dimagi has 4 new values, and today we're going to talk about the first one, be bold but humble. We'll do an episode each on each of the new values. Enjoy. All right, welcome to High Impact Growth. I am so excited to be joined today by my co-host, Jonathan Jackson, as well as 4 Dimagi team members. Gillian Javetski, our Chief of Staff, who you heard from on a previous episode, and a few new voices to the podcast. We've got Lucina Tse, who's our Chief Operating Officer, Avni Singhal, Senior Customer Success Manager, and Simon Kelly, Director of Server Engineering. Let's hear introductions from everyone to get us started.
Hi, I am Gillian. I'm the Chief of Staff at Dimagi. I have been at Dimagi total of 8 years, but actually joined 10 years ago and had 2 years where I walked a little bit away and came back. So I'm especially excited to talk about values today because that was a big reason why I was excited to come back to Dimagi and really seeing the value in values we hadn't defined, but I think always were with us. And we've now put the work into writing these out.
Hi, I'm Lucina Tse. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Dimagi. I've been with Dimagi for 8 to 9 years. A lot of my time with Dimagi has actually been working with the tech team, and now I'm working together with the operations team. So a lot of different areas I've seen across Dimagi. I'm really excited to join this session about values because I'm excited to really get how explicitly we can work together and lay that out for people new to us and also all of us at Dimagi.
Hi, so I'm Avni. I've been at Dimagi for almost 5 years now, and I've worked on sales, and currently I'm working on customer success. This episode is especially important to me and exciting for me because I've actually been part of the team that was crafting out the values. So it's really exciting to finally be able to share them out with the world.
My name is Simon Kelly. I am based out of Cape Town, South Africa. I've been at Dimagi for nearly 10 years now, and I was also part of the team that drafted these values. I believe a lot in Dimagi and what we are doing and the team involved in doing that. And so I'm excited about rolling these out to the broader company.
John, I want to hear from you, in rolling out these values, what are your reflections on kind of this process and where we landed with the values?
Yeah, so this process has taken quite some time, and I'm immensely thankful for the work that Simon, Avni, and the rest of the values team did to create these at Dimagi. But as you know and Jillian knows, we started this process over a year ago, and as the CEO, I was extremely skeptical in our ability to find values that really embodied who we were and weren't just kind of corporate speak that should apply to every organization. We look at a lot of other values when we were kicking this off, and we found lots of examples of values we didn't like because, who can argue with boldness or who can argue with, bring your best self to work in these things. And that wasn't to me going to be helpful. What I really wanted to see was unique values that apply to us that you could actually disagree with, that you could say, that's actually not how I think we should run our company or not something I agree with. And I think the values team just did an amazing job, really encapsulating and articulating what's special and unique about us. And I saw these, I was incredibly proud of them. Like, this is exactly, what I was hoping for and looking at. So when I got this initial draft, I was like, this is perfect, and so just a huge shout out to Simon, Avni, and the team who put these together.
Thanks, John. And I totally agree. Gillian, I'm curious to hear from you if you have any reflections on this process, as I know you've been thinking about this for a long time as well.
When we were starting this values process, Amy, you and I spoke to a lot of different values experts to sort of understand what are the best practices around implementing values. We knew going into this that John was really skeptical. We wanted to prove him wrong. John, I think we successfully did. And pulling together some really wonderful values, all due to the Values Council that put these together. One of the best pieces of advice I think we received from Shane Metcalf, who's a values expert, was that when you put together values, you haven't done a good job unless they're controversial. There should be something about them that speaks to people that are looking to join your company and say, that's not the place for me. And so I think that has been one of my favorite things in rolling out these values, is not just the things that we're proud of and are part of our culture, but also in being able to more concretely point to things and say, this is how we operate here. We completely understand if that's not your speed or style, but we just want to be extra clear to avoid any confusion down the road.
Totally. Dimagi is not necessarily the best place to work for everyone, right? It doesn't need to be and doesn't aim to be. And these values really help articulate who Dimagi is for and helps you understand who we are before you join. So let's jump into this. We've just rolled out newly articulated values. One value that we've had that remains steady throughout our company's history is impact, team, profit, in that order. I think of that as kind of an overarching value. We're not going to address that one today, but that is also one of our core values. But I want to get into our 4 new values. So the first one is be bold but humble. And I'm going to first read through it just to give a little bit of context and then open it up for discussion. Achieving high impact growth requires that we act boldly, knowing time and resources are limited and the need is great. We take bold risks even though we may be wrong. We act boldly but don't allow our ego to cloud our judgment. We take our work seriously, never ourselves. And then under that, we've got 4 bullets. We own our outcomes. We are not paralyzed by perfection. We make space to make choices, and we don't walk by problems. So I want to hear from this group, and I want to hear from each of you. What does this value mean to you, and why is this so important to Dimagi?
I like this value because it takes me back to when in fact, my initial months of joining Dimagi, where it was a new role entirely. The sales team was also just growing. And I remember my then manager told me that don't be afraid of making mistakes, and don't be afraid that people will notice those mistakes, because that's how you will grow. So I think that's something that stayed with me, that at Dimagi, we're not afraid of making mistakes. We're not afraid of failing. We actually like to fail and learn through each other. So that's something that I really like about this value. And a lot of the discussions that we had when we were coming up with this value were around similar experiences.
Simon, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, I think one of the defining things about my time at Dimagi has been tackling difficult problems together with the teams. And it's so refreshing to be involved with people who are bold enough to bring ideas, knowing that those might not be the ideas that get selected, or, to brainstorm in an environment where all ideas are on the table and we're not, fighting for our idea to get chosen, genuinely wanting the best ideas to get selected and come to the surface. I think it's so refreshing to work in that kind of environment where the humility is in the team and allows every individual to be part of it, not just the ones with the loudest voice or the ones who most want to get their ideas heard.
Yeah, a lot of the things I've really been excited about, like we wouldn't have been able to do if we just maintained the same way we were doing things. So Simon and I were on a team together working on a project in India that was national scale. We did that for 5 years. But when we started that project, we hadn't done any of the things that we had tried before. So we had to, like Simon and the team, rewrote the databases. We had to scale to like 10,000, 100,000 users. And none of that we would have done if we thought we should just do everything in the same way we were doing it. And the other aspect of that is the humility on the team. So if the team hadn't approached us in a way in which we were partners, to the government we're working with and whatnot, like it would have been impossible for us to be able to push things through and support things that actually like deliver impact. So I think that's like a really important aspect of what we're doing.
And Jillian.
I think this value really brings me back to, like Avni said, when I first joined Dimagi, and seeing that from the beginning, we have a real culture of continuous improvement in everything that we do. And so it's funny, John, I think his nickname for this value that we have is we fix the printer. And what that means is if you are working and try to go print something and the printer's not working, we don't walk by the printer. Like we either figure it out ourselves, or if someone's accountable for it, we flag it. And that's just one small example. Again, like printers are maybe the worst thing in the IT world that no one ever wants to deal with, but it applies to things around how we do knowledge management. Like if something isn't clear, we make sure to encourage new people that join that they like take a moment and are flagging it, or helping on working to make it better for the next person.
That's awesome. It makes me really proud and excited of the values team. And when I first saw these, it was this one really resonated. Based on Simon, Lou, Avni, those stories that you shared, and as Jillian mentioned, we joke about this. I used to say something a lot, which was, if you don't know whose problem it is, it's yours. If you really need it solved, and this kind of embodies that as well.
John, what's your take on bold but humble, and how do you anticipate this changing and evolving going forward?
Yeah, this one I felt a lot of pride in when I saw it, because we are an extremely bold company. We try to partner to a much larger extent than I think would be reasonable for a software company under normal market conditions, but we're not under normal market conditions. And what we're trying to do and accomplish and the impact we're trying to have requires a huge amount of boldness to think that we're capable of achieving these great outcomes, that our team's capable of doing these things with all of our government partners and INGO and for-profit partners. And Simon and Avni highlighted ways that this affects us as individuals within the organization and how we want each individual to act boldly, but also as an organization. We have extremely high aspirations for what we're going to be doing going forward in our 5-year strategy and in our high impact growth framework. And that requires a lot of boldness. At the same time, we don't know if we're right. And we've failed a lot over the last 20 years, and we expect to fail a whole lot going forward as well. And that's where that humility is so critical, because while we want to be extremely bold and aspirational, we also recognize how difficult this work is and how difficult our partners' jobs are. And we need to bring that humility to not think that we're right, but that we stay bold. So, Lou and Simon, you both alluded to some of the big technical achievements we've had, which were step changes in the platform. And I remember a distinct moment when we had to move from thousands of users to target hundreds of thousands of users. And Simon, I think you were tasked with completely rewriting the backend architecture so that we could increase the throughput in the system. I'm curious, when you first got that task assigned to you, and in a matter of months, we need to be able to scale to different orders of magnitude. How did the kind of sense of being bold but humble play into your confidence in your ability to take on this monumental task? And I happen to know that it got delivered extremely successfully. So what was the secret to achieving that?
We had a really excellent team of people on the problem who were committed to making it work. So I felt like I wasn't alone. I was supported. I was working with great people. And none of us knew what the right solution was, what the right idea was. And there was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of testing, and a lot of prototyping that went in at the beginning. And together we kind of figured out what the right path forward was. But working together on the team and with those other people was really fantastic.
That's great. And I think one of the big reflections, just hearing your comments there, Simon, is bold doesn't mean don't learn as we go. It doesn't mean like, do 6 months of dev and then hope that you got it right, or lay out a plan that requires a big leap of faith. In fact, one of the things that we're really good at Dimagi, I think, is testing the right units as we grow and move along, whether that's an internal process, internal technical documentation, or with a partner externally. And I do remember at that time, there was a lot of options on the table, and they were all kind of big, bold choices to make. And we had the humility to test all of them first and see which one was going to work, and then, put that one in. And I think that's really part of what's made ours successful, not just at the software level, but as an overall company.
There was one aspect of it that really stood out to me, is that when we went into planning for all of that, there wasn't a sense of we can't do this, but like the team really jumped in on how can we do this together? And that aspect, I think, really helped pull us through in so many different situations in what we were doing and talking about. Because like you said, there's like 100 different choices, but it's thinking about what's the best choice for us and doing it together that really worked out well.
I love that, Lucina, like just this sense of possibility, and that like together we can make this happen. I personally love this value, and I think to me, it speaks to something that really drew me to Dimagi, and that we're doing big things, like we're not playing it safe in any way. And even I think if you think about this podcast, like this is fairly bold of us to just start sharing, very transparently and honestly, like things that we're learning, things that we've made mistakes on, how we're thinking about things, right? I think that in essence is a bold but humble move. Thanks so much to Lucina, Gillian, Simon, and Avni for joining Jonathan, Jackson, and I today to unpack the first in our new values, which is be bold but humble. I also want to give a shout out to Dimagi's Values Council, who you heard about multiple times today, who crafted these values. The Values Council includes Avni and Simon, who spoke on the podcast today, as well as Clara, Kim, Candice, Kodu, Kai, Zohaib, Juan, and Olivia. A few other notables on this journey are Michelle Melendez, who was instrumental in kicking off this journey, Shane Metcalf, who consulted us on the way, Catherine Turner, our diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant who helped us get started, Dimagi's DEI council, who consulted, and many other Dimagiers who give input along the way. That's all for today. On the next episode, we'll continue with Dimagi's second value, lead with empathy and respect, and unpack what that means. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, rate, review, subscribe, and share this episode. It really helps us grow our audience and our impact. And write to us at podcast@dimagi.com with any ideas or questions. Thanks so much.